Hello and welcome to The World Today, everyone. I'm Richard Nta in Nairobi. We'll begin in China and the ongoing two sessions in Beijing. And earlier today, Wang Yi was in the spotlight as China's foreign minister took questions from the national and international media. During the event, he outlined the country's vision for foreign affairs, which he said was guided by head of state diplomacy. Wang Yi also announced important events for his ministry in 2026, including the hosting of the APEC summit in November. CGTN's Zheng Yibing has more for us.
21 questions raised to the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, covering all aspects of China's diplomacy. Wang Yi's answers show China's diplomacy provides the most valuable stability and certainty for the turbulent world and has become an indispensable pillar in the midst of global chaos. He stated the head of state diplomacy is a guiding principle on China's foreign policy. And over the past year, in the face of the turbulent international situation, Chinese President Xi Jinping carried out the magnificent foreign policy as a head of state, creating numerous significant historic moments.
1年来，习近平主席同世界主要国家领导人举行重要会晤，开展。
President Xi Jinping had important meetings with world leaders over the past year, pioneering new practices of dialogue and coordination between major countries. He visited Southeast Asia, Russia, Central Asia and the Republic of Korea, building up the new momentum of good neighbourliness and friendship. He hosted the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Tianjin and the China CELAC Forum, gathering new impetus for the great unity of the Global South. He attended a series of commemorations of the 80th anniversary of the victory of the Chinese People's War of Resistance against Japanese aggression and the World Anti-Fascist War, sounding a new, powerful call for safeguarding peace and justice. More and more countries have come to see that under the guidance and stewardship of President Xi Jinping, China's diplomacy provides the most needed stability and certainty to a world in turmoil and serves as an irreplaceable mainstay amid global turbulence. In particular, the series of important initiatives and propositions put forward by President Xi Jinping demonstrate exceptional strategic foresight and broad global vision. They point out the right way forward for the changes in the world unseen in a century. These diplomatic engagements are bound to further advance China's relations with the world in a positive direction, open up new space for building a community with a shared future for humanity, and enable the Chinese nation to make new, greater contributions to world peace and development.
Well, Wang Yi said this year President Xi will give the received guests from all sides host a major home-based diplomatic events such as the APEC Leaders Informal Meeting and the second China-Arab States Summit, and will also undertake several important overseas visits. Well, these actions will surely push China's relations with the world towards the more positive direction.
China's foreign minister also addressed the escalating Middle East situation. Wang Yi called for an immediate halt to military operations and proposed 5 fundamental principles to prevent the conflict from spreading.
Once again, China calls for an immediate stop to military operations to avoid the spiraling escalation of the situation and prevent the conflict from spilling over and spreading. China is of the view that to find the right and proper solution to the issues relating to Iran and the Middle East, the following fundamental principles must be observed. First, respecting state sovereignty. Sovereignty is the cornerstone of the current international order. We believe that the sovereignty, security, and territorial integrity of Iran and all countries in the Gulf region should be respected and must not be violated. Second, rejecting the abuse of force. Might does not make right. The law of the jungle must not return and rule the world. Willful use of force does not prove one's strength. Civilians are innocent and should not be victimized. Third, non-interference in internal affairs. The people in the Middle East are the true master of the region. Middle Eastern affairs should be determined by regional countries independently. Plotting color revolution or seeking regime change will find no popular support. Fourth, promoting political settlement of hotspot issues. China always believes that peace is the most precious. All sides should return to the negotiating table as quickly as possible, resolve differences through equal dialogue, and make efforts for realizing common security. Fifth, major countries should play a constructive role and use their strength in goodwill. Another ancient Chinese adage reads, "When benevolence and justice are not practiced, the position of strength shifts." Major countries should act in the spirit of justice and righteousness and contribute more positive energy to peace and development of the Middle East.
Our reporter, Panina Karibe, is covering the two sessions. She joins us live now from Beijing. Panina, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us. Panina, what has the schedule been like today, and what do we expect tomorrow?
Well, Richard, that press conference by the Foreign Affairs Minister Wang Yi grabbed international headlines. There was a lot happening here in Beijing, quiet meetings. The delegates from various provinces across China grouped to review 3 draft laws today. At 9 in the morning, they reviewed the draft Ecological Environment Code. So essentially, this is like a super law on nature. So instead of having separate scattered laws on air, water, soil, and wildlife, China has come up with one massive organized law. So this law seeks to have consistent enforcement and also create a clearer legal framework for China's green transition and carbon goals. But that was in the morning at 9. Then this afternoon at 3 p.m., the delegates also reviewed 2 draft laws. One was on advancing ethnic unity and progress. So what this law aims to do, or this draft law aims to do, is to formalize government efforts to integrate the ethnic minority regions into the national economy and the education system. And the other one they looked at was the National Development Planning draft law. So this is more about the development goals, long-term development goals of the country, and it aims to ensure that those goals or those efforts do not get derailed by the short-term changes that happen. So essentially, China's way of trying to make sure that it commits and sticks to its long-term development agenda. So that was today. Tomorrow, another very busy day. The focus will shift from planning new laws to now reporting of what major top branches of the Chinese government did last year and what they're planning to do the coming year. So we will hear from the NPC Standing Committee report. We will also have the Supreme People's Court report. We will have the Supreme People's Procuratorate report, and we will also have the law cleanup process. So just to clear this up, or to put it into perspective, Richard, this law cleanup process essentially looks at those laws that have become outdated over the years, or laws that contradict newer laws. And so it's some sort of cleanup process to ensure that businesses and people get to understand the legal process better, Richard. So that's the agenda for tomorrow.
Well, thank you, Panina Karibe, for keeping us up to date with the very latest, reporting live from Beijing. Iran's Assembly of Experts has made their final decision on a new supreme leader, though the name of the candidate has not been disclosed at this time. This development follows the death of former Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was killed in attacks by the United States and Israel on March the 1st. Iran's president, the head of its judiciary, and a member of the Guardian Council formed a temporary committee to perform the supreme leader's duties after Khamenei's death. Tehran's residents are seeking refuge in other Iranian cities as attacks from Israel and the United States intensify. Millions still remain in the capital, many trying to maintain their daily routines and others preparing supplies for a potentially long ordeal. Our correspondent Sepra Saremi reports from Tehran.
After hostilities erupted between Iran and Israel U.S. forces, many residents rushed to leave Tehran, worried the capital could become a major target, but others have chosen to stay, adapting their daily lives while preparing for the unknown. Across the city, some families have started storing essential food and water in case the conflict lasts longer than expected. Like many here in Tehran, my own family has also prepared some basic supplies. My father, a veteran of Iran-Iraq war, says living through the past conflict has taught him the importance of being prepared.
Since we are living in a chaotic region for half a century in a country which is not stable, either the economy or the political conditions. We have been saving some essential needs like first water, rice. These are the main food we are in need of. Then spaghetti, pasta, some canned goods, and what else? These are the things can keep us at least for 2 weeks, and we hope this critical situation wouldn't last longer.
While families are stocking up at home, daily life in Tehran has not completely stopped, but is far from normal. The entire country is under attack. Still, for now, most shops remain open, and residents say they are able to buy what they need. To get a better sense of how people are coping, we visited a market in Abos province, just outside Tehran. Many residents have also left this area, as it is close to the capital. But life here continues, despite the uncertainty.
At first we were worried there might be shortages. But thankfully, whenever I come here, most products are available. Sometimes an item may run out for a short time, but usually rice, pasta, and other essentials are still on the shelves.
Shop owners say the first days after hostilities began were chaotic, as many residents rushed to buy supplies.
In the first few days after the war started, many people rushed here, and we faced some shortages. But after about 3 days, supplies arrived again. Now we receive 4 tons of products every 3 days. And as you can see, the shelves and warehouses are well stocked.
Workers say the initial panic buying has eased as supply chains stabilize.
Because of the war, people started buying groceries in a panic, especially non-perishable items. But gradually things are becoming more normal, and people are mostly buying what they actually need.
For many residents here, the situation remains uncertain. While some continue preparing for the worst, others are simply trying to maintain their routines, hoping the conflict will not last long. Seper Sarabi, CGTN, Tehran.
Well, that is it for this edition of The World Today. I'll be back shortly with more news from the continent in Africa Live. Thanks for watching. China's foreign minister hails the global south, calling it an emerging positive force for the good on the international stage. Dozens are killed in another landslide at a mining site in the DR Congo's Rubaya region. And as the world marks International Women's Day, we look at how Gambian women are helping reshape their capital's economic landscape. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta, live in Nairobi. And for those of you joining us from across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at other stories making headlines this hour. Coming up in business, concerns grow in Nigeria as post-harvest losses hit $3.6 billion. And in sports, we look at the reasons behind the shock postponement of the 2026 Women's Africa Cup of Nations. Once again, a very warm welcome to Africa Live. We'll begin in China and more from the ongoing two sessions in Beijing. And earlier today, Wang Yi was in the spotlight as the country's foreign minister took questions from the national and international media. During the event, he touched on issues related to the global south, including Africa, which he said was an emerging and positive force for good on the international stage. Let's listen in.
The collective rise of the global south is the distinct hallmark of the great transformation unfolding in the world. The global south is an emerging positive force for good on the international stage to speak up for peace and empower development. Multilateralism is vital for global south countries. We should encourage the international community to practice true multilateralism and uphold the UN-centered international system and the international order based on international law. We must always ensure that world affairs are discussed and handled by all nations and international rules formulated by all countries. China's heart is with the global south. China's root is in the global south. We are ready to join hands with other global south countries to journey on toward modernization and advance the building of a community with a shared future for humanity.
Well, let's bring in Dr. David Monyai, an associate professor of political science and international relations at the University of Johannesburg and director of the Center for Africa-China Studies, joining us live via Zoom from Johannesburg. Doctor, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us here on Africa Live. Well, the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi highlighted President Xi Jinping's global engagements, which have brought stability to a turbulent world. Looking at that diplomatic vision, what are the key areas that have been demonstrative of the fact that strong China-Africa friendship has withstood the testing of changing international circumstances?
I think one would say 4 quick points. That firstly, the relationship has been institutionalized through the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation. It makes easy. It also makes the situation much better in turbulent situation as the one we're going through currently. It also strengthens Africa's the drive for industrialization as well as development in terms of cooperation. I think we've seen a sustained way of developing the African continent through cooperation, as well as there also has been that expanding of trade with the recent opening up of Chinese markets. And lastly, one would say political stability in terms of ability to negotiate, ability to deal with some of the major issues, whether through the AU, where China played a critical role in assisting Africa deal with its own challenges.
Dr. Monyai, from your perspective, how can Africa continue to leverage this relationship with China?
A number of things that Africa is required doing, and one would say have already started doing. I think firstly, the focus on industrialization and value addition. I think we've seen more of that emphasis with more, given the huge advantage that the African has. It has 1.5 billion and mostly young people, a huge asset. 60% of global land, arable land, is on the African continent, and more importantly, the strategic minerals. I think turning all that above, it's a way in which African states have been sending students to Chinese university, cooperation on developing and refining some of these strategic minerals, as well as dealing with agro processing through recently signed free trade.
And finally, the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi also says, listen to this, that the Global South is an emerging positive force for good on the international stage. To that you say what, and where is this most evident?
In a number of areas that one would find strong evidence that the strong relationship between the African continent and China has really indeed strengthened the Global South in key areas. One would say the reform of global governance institutions. I think you have seen an elevated voice from the Global South demanding changes within the UN system, particularly reforms of United Nations Security Council, other UN agencies. I think there has been a demand for them to reform, even though that change is slow. I think you've seen small shifts in terms of the appointment of people and the like, and the rise of multilateral platforms led by the Global South countries. I think with BRICS, particularly the new development bank, these are new multilateral reform that enable the developing countries, more so Africa, to have a platform in terms of access to capital, as well as the South-South cooperation. We have seen an increase in relation within the Global South itself, whether Brazil through into the African continent, into Asia, trade among Global South countries themselves. And lastly, one would say the diplomatic relation among Global South. I think we've seen the role that China played previously in bringing peace, mediation between Iran and Saudi Arabia. These are among many changes that one would say the rise of Global South it somehow brings a stability to the global order.
All right, Dr. David Monyai, Associate Professor, University of Johannesburg, and also Director for the Center for Africa-China Studies. Thanks for that. Many African governments have noted China's long-term development strategy and its growing economic influence. Over the decades, the two sides have improved cooperation in many strategic areas, particularly under the Belt and Road Initiative. Some experts are now urging for even closer cooperation.
But having seen this planning and now being in its 15th term, especially over the last 30 years, we are now seeing the fruit of this planning. We are seeing quality on our streets, the big cars that are driving around. So that expression of made in China is now changing. And I guess it is also because of this level of planning. And there's a need for partnership. And for a country such as South Africa, I believe there's benefit in looking for collaborations, looking for cooperations. You know, you can expect the impact in all levels of the economy, but more on education, the opportunities for exchanges that are there for our youth. I think that must be maximized, but also for the learnings, you know, how we do skills development, especially using new technology. There are ample opportunities to collaborate, even across space, virtually so. And those opportunities need to be maximized, especially for education, for science, and for innovation, especially given the fact that now China is dominating the science, research, and innovation space globally. So there is a lot that South Africa will benefit in cooperating and in joining hands to make sure that the impact and the benefits also flow over.
To the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where dozens of people have died in a landslide at an artisanal mining site in Rubaya. This is according to local media reports citing local sources. Authorities are yet to release an official death toll. The incident occurred at the Gakombe mining site early Saturday following heavy rains. Residents say several people are missing as search efforts continue under difficult conditions. Rubaya, the country's biggest source of coltan, has witnessed repeated mining disasters. Earlier this week, a mine collapse triggered by heavy rains killed more than 200 people, including at least 70 children. A similar collapse at the site in late January following heavy rainfall has a similar death toll. Well, we have our correspondent Chris Ochemringa joining us live from Kinshasa right now. Chris, welcome to the program. Thanks for joining us. Chris, what is the very latest on the mining site landslide in Rubaya?
Well, Richard, I spoke to an official here in Kinshasa who has relatives in that mining site, the Gakombe mining site in Rubaya, and he said that it was triggered by heavy rainfall, and he said that very many people are feared dead. He was quoting a figure of more than 100 people, including children. He said there were very many houses that were destroyed when the runoff, the mud came, tumbling down from this hilly area where this mining site is located, and he's saying that many of those people who survived and the neighboring areas are trying to search and rescue people who were trapped in these deep underground tunnels, but they're using basic tools like spades and hoes, and so that is really a very slow process, and there are fears that by the time they get to some of these people, some of them might have suffocated to death. So they have already collected some bodies in that area. We haven't got any official death toll, like you mentioned earlier, but we're waiting for one of the authorities. That area is under the control of the M23 rebels, and they haven't issued any situation report about what's happening in there. This comes just 5 days after another mining landslide happened in Rubaya, like you mentioned, and so people in that area are very worried about their safety. Richard?
Tragic developments indeed, Chris. Chris, what can we learn from this? Which areas are currently at the greatest risk from the heavy rains?
So the hilly areas of North Kivu, where many mines are located, people have built a lot of houses on the foot of these hills, and whenever there's any very serious rainfall, then all that, the mud, the landslide, it all goes and destroys their homes. So people in North Kivu, South Kivu, another area which is also rich in minerals and very, very hilly, is also an area that is very prone to these disasters. We also have Ituri in the northeast, which is very rich in gold. That also has reported some cases of such disasters. And other parts of western DRC, like Equateur province, Mai-Ndombe, those are areas that have very dense rainforest. So all those areas also during this rainy season have had a lot of devastation. Richard?
Let's leave it there for now. Chris Ochemringa reporting live from Kinshasa. Thanks for that. The East African community has renewed calls for a ceasefire in the volatile eastern region of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Leaders are meeting in the Tanzanian city of Arusha for the annual summit of the bloc, of which the DRC is a member. It's the latest effort to bring peace to the region long scarred by conflict, but without the presence of key players at the meeting, analysts believe the plea might be in vain. Our correspondent Ethan Tashobia reports from Arusha.
After a lengthy meeting behind closed doors, leaders emerged to join delegates for an open session of the 25th Ordinary Summit of the East African Community. Meeting in Arusha in northern Tanzania, the 8-member regional bloc is discussing key political, economic and security priorities shaping East Africa's future. 5 heads of state attended in person. The two countries at the heart of the ongoing violence in eastern DRC, Rwanda, and the DRC itself were among those who sent senior representatives. Prime Minister Justin Nsengiyumva represented Kigali, and the Congolese Minister for Regional Integration was there for Kinshasa. The DRC accuses Rwanda of supporting the AFC M23 rebel movement, which is engaged in a war with the Congolese army after seizing large swathes of the eastern DRC in recent years. Rwanda denies the accusations, but concedes it is working to protect itself against the FDLR armed group in the region, a group it says Kinshasa is supporting. Despite the complexities, Kenyan President William Ruto says the regional bloc remains committed to supporting efforts to end the conflict.
Our commitment to enhance peace, stability, and economic development in the region. The community partnered with other stakeholders to address some of the peace and security challenges affecting our region, especially in the eastern DRC. You may recall that under the East Africa-led Nairobi process on the restoration of peace and security in eastern DRC, we agreed to adopt a coordinated approach and merge the Luanda and EAC-led Nairobi processes.
In the opening session, neither delegations from the DRC nor Rwanda addressed the meeting publicly, a silence that suggested that enough had been said behind closed doors. The summit communique later confirmed the bloc's commitment to stabilizing the conflict-hit eastern Congo.
C called on all parties to the conflict to cease hostilities and observe immediate ceasefire while recommitting to peaceful resolution of their differences. D urged the African Union to provide requisite financial and logistical resources to the AU-led mediation process on Eastern DRC to ensure expeditious and sustainable engagement of the process till conclusion.
The leaders called for the coordinated effort to implement decisions aimed at restoring peace in Eastern DRC. Yoweri Museveni, President of Uganda, and the incoming chairperson of the East African Community urged all parties to cease hostilities and observe an immediate ceasefire. He also reaffirmed the support to deeper regional political confederation as a long-term solution to security challenges in Eastern DRC and across Africa.
The next question is the issue of strategic security against all possible threats. If we do not understand that, we again betray Africa. Strategic security can only come, in my view, from political integration. Why? Political integration through the creation of the regional federations where possible rationalizes the geography of the defended zone so that we are able to be present in the four spheres of the universe.
Beyond security, leaders highlighted the economic progress within the bloc. President Ruto noted that intra-East African trade has grown by more than 22%, helping narrow the region's trade deficit and strengthen economic integration. In institutional changes, Tanzanian diplomat Stephen Mbundi was appointed the new Secretary General of the East African Community, a role responsible for coordinating the bloc's regional policies and programs. While previous regional and international mechanisms have failed to deliver on peace and security in Eastern DRC, officials believe that a return to this historic negotiating city could offer open momentum for dialogue that would lead to stability in that part of the region. Ethan Toshibia for CGTN, Arusha, Tanzania.
And now to the Sudan conflict, and at least 40 people have died following two separate drone attacks in West Kordofan state. And that's according to a medical source and local authorities. The drones hit Abu Zabad and Wad Banda markets, which are 15 kilometers apart, on Saturday evening. Fighting between the army and the rapid support forces broke out almost 3 years ago, but it has intensified in the resource-rich Kordofan region in recent months. A doctor at Abu Zabad Hospital said 30 of the wounded are receiving treatment. A resident said he helped bury 20 bodies as locals blamed the army for the attack. However, a military source denied the accusation, saying that the armed forces do not bombard civilian areas. Still in Sudan, where more than 650 cases of dengue fever have been recorded in the northern state, and that's according to a doctors' lobby group who says the state has been seeing a surge in mosquito-borne illnesses amid shortage of medicines. Authorities say they have intensified awareness campaigns and epidemiological surveillance to curb the spread. 4 deaths have also been recorded. Dengue fever is a viral illness which causes symptoms such as high fever, severe headache, and rash. Time now for a short break. We shall reset and return with more Africa Live. Here's what's ahead. Still ahead, gift to gain. On International Women's Day, we'll see why the Gambia is leading the way in investing in women's potential. Welcome back to Africa Live. Thanks for staying with us. Today is International Women's Day, a day to commemorate the women's fight for equality and liberation, along with various women's rights movements. This year's International Women's Day comes with a strong message: give to gain, or see a return from investing in women's potential. The Gambia offers a powerful example of what can be achieved in this sense. In the capital Banjul, women are not only running businesses, they are reshaping the city's economic landscape. But as Lena Iguayiba reports, they're not doing it all on their own.
This year's theme, Give to Gain, rests on a simple but transformative idea. When women are given access, resources, and belief, the return extends far beyond the individual. In Banjul, that return is visible inside the classrooms of the Gainjora Skills Academy. What began 17 years ago as a simple salon has grown into 3 training centers across the country, equipping more than 7,000 young people, 90% of them girls, with practical, income-generating skills.
So opposite my house, I was living with a girl that was from Bissau, but dating a guy that was 60 years old. That's the story of Gainjora, because we just had a salon then, but through that salon. So I said, I can empower her to be in the salon, learn the skill, and then be somebody else rather than follow this old man. If the man is gone, who's going to help her? Neither, I'm telling you, since building a school in Jiboro, which Gainjora cannot even do right now. She had a big spa in Senegambia and in Madiana. She's doing extremely well.
For Fatou Sengay, empowerment is not theory. It is intervention. Students leave not only with technical ability, but with tools to operate independently.
And our students, I'll tell you, 90% are gainfully employed, working for themselves. We do entrepreneurship, customer care, we train them that. And before you leave Gainjora, you must have a logo, you must register your business with justice.
The impact of that model extends into the broader urban economy. A 2024 publication by UNFPA indicates that women make up 52% of the Gambia's 2.4 million population. In 2018, Rohey Malik Low became Banjul's first female mayor, placing women's economic empowerment at the center of city policy.
I remember in 2019 or end of 2018, I have to mobilize together from my family $10 million to give to the women of Banjul. And it has brought a huge impact. Some of them have even built their houses. So definitely, I think we deserve to be celebrated every day. And I want to take that opportunity to congratulate every woman, not only women in the Gambia, but by extension Africa.
From direct financial support to scholarships and advocacy, the city's leadership has treated women's enterprise not as a side initiative, but as an economic strategy. Nationally, the National Enterprise Development Initiative is reinforcing that approach.
When government and institutions like NEDI and partners give women access to opportunities like financing, training, mentorship, and coaching, the country gains stronger businesses, more jobs, and more inclusive economy. So for the Gambia, Give to Gain means recognizing and empowering women economically, which is not just a social goal, it's also an economic strategy for sustainable development.
On International Women's Day, the message from Banjul is clear. Giving women skills is not charity. Giving women capital is not generosity. Giving women a leadership space is not symbolism. It is economic strategy. And here in the Gambia, women are proving that when they rise, the city rises with them. Lena Iguayiba, CGTN Banjul.
Well, in parts of rural China, empowerment is taking the form of a needle and thread. In the mountains of Sichuan, the ancient art of embroidery is uplifting the lives of thousands of local women. For more on this, our reporter Panina Karibe met with an NPC deputy on the sidelines of the ongoing 2 sessions in Beijing. Let's take a look.
I'm here with Deputy Qiaojin Shuangmei. As the world celebrates International Women's Day, the conversation is centered around rights, action, and justice. But for the women of Yi in the mountains of Sichuan, justice is not just a legal term. It's the right to earn a living, the action to pick up a needle, and the justice of having their heritage recognized by the world. Deputy Qiaojin Shuangmei, you've spent years of your life teaching embroidery skills to the women of Yi. How has that translated into economic gains for not just these women, but their families as well?
At the beginning, no one was doing Yi embroidery. Gradually, more people joined in. Now, we have mobilized 1,850 embroiderers and trained more than 40,000 people. Now, with flexible employment at home, the per capita annual income has exceeded 18,000 yuan.
This tradition dates back over 1,700 years, defined by its signature black, red, and yellow tones. But under China's 15th five-year plan for high-quality development, Qiao is taking this ancient craft into the future. She's blending Yi techniques with modern culture, even stitching icons like nature and the Shangxi Dui masks into her work. By using platforms like Douyin and Kuaishou, she's bridging the digital divide for women in remote ethnic areas, ensuring that modernization doesn't mean leaving their culture behind. It's a push she's making at the ongoing 2 sessions.
The general direction of my work is to continue increasing support for intangible cultural heritage. Also, for example, we can also cooperate with Africa. We can sell our Yi embroidery to Africa, which would be a very good thing. We can have some products made by African women. This way, we can achieve mutual benefit and win-win results.
This vision of cross-border collaboration is at the heart of Qiao's message. She believes that the challenges faced by rural artisans are universal and that by sharing markets and expertise, traditional crafts can become a global currency for empowerment. As woman legislator at the heart of decision-making in China, what message would you give the women in Africa this International Women's Day?
May you African sisters have increasingly prosperous lives. You can also work together with Chinese women on intangible cultural heritage projects. Bring Africa's good products to Sichuan, to China, and bring China's good products to Africa. We are one family with ethnic unity.
From the remote mountains of Sichuan to the global stage, the message is universal. When a woman is empowered with the right to work, an entire culture moves forward. Panina Karibe, CGTN, in Beijing, China.
As global trade dynamics evolve, China is opening its vast domestic market wider to international partners. Officials say new initiatives to boost imports, tourism, and foreign investment could create fresh opportunities for businesses worldwide, including exporters from Africa. CGTN's Enoch Sokolia reports from Beijing.
Home to 1.4 billion people, China is increasingly positioning its super large market as a platform for global economic cooperation.
But what does this mean for the world and for Africa in particular?
At a press conference during the 2 sessions, China's Minister of Commerce outlined 3 pillars behind this push: shop in China, export to China, and invest in China.
To shop in China, you first need to get here. And with the expanded visa-free policies, that is becoming easier than ever.
Specifically, in the narrow sense, shop in China refers to facilitating the movement of people and attracting more international tourists to spend, sightsee, and shop in China. Nowadays, foreign friends coming to China are not only visiting big cities like Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou. More and more are exploring small and medium-sized cities. They're moving from sightseeing and shopping to immersive experiences.
During the recent Chinese New Year holiday, tax refund shopping by foreign tourists surged in several regions. Through the Export to China initiative, Beijing aims to help more international products reach Chinese consumers. More than 100 trade promotion events are planned this year.
This year, Export to China has invited the United Kingdom, Kazakhstan, Kenya, Thailand, and others as themed partners, strengthening coordination with tailored strategies for each. We welcome all countries to seize these new opportunities and make China the best export destination for more nations.
For African exporters, that opportunity could be significant. Kenya, for example, began exporting fresh avocados to China in 2022. Shipments surged from less than 500 tons to more than 4,300 tons in just 1 year. Starting this May, China will grant zero tariff treatment to imports from 53 African countries, further expanding access to this massive market.
Meanwhile, the Invest in China initiative welcomes foreign companies who see China as a gym, a place to build strength.
With our super-large market and rich scenarios, China becomes a testing ground and application field for foreign enterprises' innovation and R&D.
Authorities say the three initiatives are organically connected, with greater synergy expected. While some countries wield markets as weapons, China says it is offering its market as an opportunity for all to share.
To shop, to export, or to invest, which one will you choose? In 2026, are you ready for China's super large market? Enoxicolius, CGTN, Beijing.
Time now for our sports segment. Here are the headlines. Coming up in sports, we'll look into the reasons behind the shock postponement of the 2026 Women's Africa Cup of Nations.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours?